Before I can really discuss my beliefs or disbeliefs, I figured that I should probably give you a history of my upbringing so you can kind of have a background to understand me. My parents married in 1986, and they were married by a justice of the peace. 7 years later, I was born, this younger of two daughters. I went to a Christian preschool, which I actually didn't know that I went to a Christian preschool until actually rather recently. I asked my parents about why I was sent to a Christian preschool, and it turns out that the reasons were simply it was inexpensive and it was nearby. That was the only reason. God and religion wasn't ever really mentioned in my household, at least not when I was a small child, or really in elementary school at all. My first encounter with religion happened when I made friends with a girl named Kelsey who lived in my neighborhood. She was really sweet, and her father was the pastor of a Baptist church nearby. Now, it seems to have been a requirement that for Kelsey to have a friend, that friend must be Christian. They invited me to church a lot, and I went a lot, and I actually started allowing myself to be indoctrinated. I started to consider myself a Christian. I was saved, as they put it, and I started praying every now and again because I felt like that was the thing you were supposed to do. They taught me all about how I need to be a Republican because the Republican Party is the one that values God, and I believed it. I swallowed it up. Then they started talking about baptizing me, and I was never comfortable with having my head underwater, and I was a little terrified. And then the more I thought about it, the less I focused on the fact that they would plunge my head underwater, and more concerned about what if I don't see Jesus like I'm supposed to? What if they have to plunge me under again and again and again because I don't see Jesus until I just lie and say that I saw Jesus, in which case I'd be a terrible Christian. And that was my first moment of skepticism. I never really for a moment even believed that I would see Jesus. That there was no reason for me to. Like, why would he be there when they plunge my head underwater? That doesn't even make sense. That was my first real moment of reasoning against God. Now, I complained to my dad about the whole ordeal, and he said I could no longer be friends with Kelsey because they're so persistent. They actually showed up at my door. The parents kept showing up at my house door, and my dad kept having to lie and say that I wasn't there so that they wouldn't just drag me away to be baptized. So he cut that off. And I didn't really care about religion after that for the longest time, until around the time I was a freshman in high school. At that point I started asking questions because it became more and more apparent what my friends were. They talked about it more, they were going on missions trips and whatever. Actually, it started out because we had to do volunteer work for high school, and all my Christian friends had so many opportunities, and I had no idea where to go to volunteer. And so I started discussing it with my older sister, and we kept asking questions about God and whether a God would exist, why religions are the way they are, what the rules are in religions. And by the end of my freshman year, I identified as an agnostic. Before then, I probably would have been considered an atheist because I truly didn't care. I started asking my parents about it, and I discovered that my mom was raised Presbyterian. I actually had no idea that she was raised Presbyterian because she never made any mention of God. I don't know how strongly she still holds onto those beliefs. She does seem to have a real love for angels, but I don't know if she has any belief in God anymore. And my dad, I would consider him an atheist. He doesn't really care. Every now and again he'll bring up the idea that aliens invented the planet, but he just truly doesn't care. So, I was agnostic by the end of my freshman year of high school. My sophomore year in high school, I started having piano lessons. Finally, I've been begging for piano lessons for my entire life, and I finally got one with this truly kind woman who lived far away, so I was only able to see her once a month. And I went from not knowing a thing about piano to playing Fur-Elise in 6 months. And I was her favorite student, she told me so, and I made her cry at recital. And I felt truly successful, and she was supportive of me. She came to the high school musical that I was in that year. And then after one lesson, she asked me what church I belonged to, and I was honest. I was always raised to be honest. and told her, well, I don't belong to a church, I'm not religious. And she immediately just shut down, and she started telling me about how non-Christians are condemned to spending eternity in hell, and that if I ever wanted to, she could save me, but I never actually got that chance, even if I had gone for it, which I wouldn't have, because after that conversation, she would never answer the phone when I called to try to make an appointment for my next lesson. She never returned any calls. I honestly don't know what happened, but it seems like it was based from my non-religious standpoint, and that was the first time I felt any strong contempt for religion, and the exclusivity of it, and the bigotry of it. So by the time I was a senior, after years of contemplating, I identified as an atheist, and I still do to this day.